Bransford and Brown's How People Learn, Chapter 3, Transferring Learning, presented by Makisha Hillary, Brett Marshall, and Jessica McCrae. What is transfer? According to Bransford and Brown, transfer is one's ability to extend content from one context to a new context in order to develop specific competencies. Although transfer has traditionally been thought to be strongly influenced by similar elements or pieces of context, in similar situations, newer research has suggested that transfer is less context-specific. In fact, overly contextualized information may actually be detrimental to appropriate transfer. Rather, it is now thought that transfer is an active and dynamic process that may be more strongly based on the ability of the learner to thoroughly comprehend abstract concepts rather than specific details between various learning situations. In order for appropriate and successful transfer to occur, mastery of the initial material is vital. Mastery of material is influenced by a variety of factors, including time, conceptual understanding, and motivation. In mastery of subject, time spent mastering that topic is crucial. The time required to transfer in mastery is vital. The time required to properly learn, organize, conceptualize, and reflect on a subject can be quite extensive. However, how that time is utilized is also an important factor. In order to maximize mastery and thus transfer, it is vital that conceptual understanding of subject material be more important than merely memorizing facts or details. This is best done by teaching topics in a variety of contexts where similar themes can be applied. By keeping content from being overly contextualized, it helps the learner to see out of context applications of learned material, rather than focusing on specific details of the topic. Other factors influencing mastery of material are motivation and implication. Students who are better engaged in the learning process generally are more intrinsically motivated to learn. When students become intrinsically motivated, they can become aware of how they are learning material, increasing metacognition, and potentially transfer. By challenging learners with appropriate, difficult tasks and giving time to monitor and reflect on their learning, students will be more engaged in their own learning process. One way to do this is by providing real-world applications of material as well as problems that have real-world implications. Other than initial learning and mastery, several other factors can influence a learner's ability to transfer knowledge, many of which boil down to methodologies in how that material was originally presented and learned. Some of these methodologies include context, problem representations, flexibility of material, an active and passive learning environment, and the involvement of metacognition in the learning process. As previously stated, context of material greatly influences successful transfer. Defining the context in which a topic can be applied can provide a more thorough conceptual understanding of that topic and prevent it from being overly contextualized and thus limiting transfer. Another way to induce transfer is to utilize problem representations of material. For example, using abstract graphical representations to provide insight to a difficult to understand topic can be beneficial in promoting transfer. Yet another act of transfer is the flexibility of the original material and the relationship between the learning and transfer conditions. Similar to the original concept of elements of similar material between the prior and novel content, flexibility concerns how similar the two need to be for optimal transfer to take place. Ideally, the originally learned content is flexible enough to be applied to the new content. Less flexible original content requires more elements of overlap between the original and new content, and vice versa. The environment in which material is learned may also influence transfer. As expected, Active and engaging environments tend to promote intrinsic motivation, which in turn leads to better mastery and thus transfer of material, while passive environments may produce the opposite effect. Finally, the involvement of metacognition in the learning process can influence transfer. Students that are engaged, given ample time to process, reflect, and articulate material that has been presented to them generally are better able to transfer material. Individual mastery of a topic creates a foundation on which to build new material. Similar to the concept of mastery, without an initial foundation of knowledge, the less can be transferred to a new topic. Another aspect of individual transfer is the ability to undergo conceptual change. Students who are reluctant or incapable of reshaping and rethinking their assumptions of certain subject material will be limited in their ability to undergo appropriate transfer. Although transfer may occur in these individuals, it may not be applied correctly, causing the student to misinterpret new information. Finally, cultural and social backgrounds of individuals may also play a role in transfer. For example, students raised in different backgrounds may have experienced different methodologies from their families when learning topics or hearing stories. As such, their ability to transfer new material appropriately will be influenced by those experiences. Importantly, learning and transfer in this manner is not necessarily wrong, so much as different. Transfer, school, and everyday life. To wrap up, it is important to note that there are differences between school and everyday life that can make appropriate real-world transfer more difficult. These differences should, at the very least, have some light to shed upon them. The first major difference between the two environments is that school tends to focus more on individual performance rather than group, team, work-oriented goals. The second is that school tends to focus more on developing mental tools versus the use of actual tools to solve problems. Finally, school tends to focus more on abstract reasoning, such as long division, instead of contextualized material that is encountered in real life. For example, the transfer differences between school and real-life application. How can I use long division? Real-life application. How much lumber will I need to build a house? Overall, a variety of factors shape transfer of material. Some of these factors are influenced by how the material is encountered or contextualized, how much time and effort from the student has gone into mastering that material, and how individuals interpret that material based on their personal and/or cultural experiences.